Start streaming. We're good. All right. Let's let Scott mess with his microphone. It's Monday, February 4th, 2019. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about cheating, mostly in school, with technology.
It's all you.
Yeah, it's good enough. Good enough show. Saved. We're good. Live stream seems like it's working. Bandwidth looks fine because Google had a problem the other day, but it seems fixed. All right. Geek Nights. You said you had an opening bit.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. So I get on the train to come home.
Like you do.
And, you know, I barely notice. But as I enter the train, right across from me is some sort of panhandling gentleman.
Yeah, usually you notice it enough, but
who I
like
completely ignore and go about my business elsewhere in the train.
so no warning signs, no like might be a stabbing hobo. So
I'm
you
just saying, it was,
yeah.
I just ignored, right?
All right,
as
all right.
usual.
Yeah.
I just noticed. I can't even tell you what it looked like. I just noticed there was one. And then at the next stop, as they do, they get off and go to the next car because, you know, you already panhandled the people in this car. You got to go get some fresh ears.
And you know, to their credit, in this case, waiting for the next stop is the right idea because a lot of people get seriously hurt trying to walk through the subway cars, like those doors.
Oh yeah,
That is way more dangerous than people realize.
people die going between the cars.
Like I am a pretty like non-risk averse person. I would not walk through those doors of a moving subway train.
No, anyway, so it goes to the next car to get the rubes in the next car.
No.
And another panhandling gentleman enters, who I wouldn't have noticed because I was already in headphone land elsewhere in the car.
Yep. You already assessed the situation of the train. Now you're just headphone land. Like
But this gentleman was yelling angrily and scarily. So I'm like, well, that's definitely not the one that was just here. That is the second one. One got off and one got on. Huh? How about that? You don't see that every day. And then at the next stop, that one got off. And a third one got on.
So at this point, is there a schedule?
I was 3 for 3. 3 stops, 3 panhandlers. Okay, all right. So, all right.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
now I'm taking notice because this is unusual.
yeah, because like one time a second mariachi band came onto the 7 train when I was coming back from Flushing, but that was just awesome. I was like, what,
Okay.
2?
Even
yeah.
this is unusual, but not yet thing of the day worthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that they get off, and I don't remember. There may have been a break of 1 stop, but at most 1 stop later, kids selling fruit snacks.
Haha.
Fruit snack kid comes.
All right. The only thing that could have made this better is if the next stop was showtime.
Hold on.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
After fruit snacks kid, there was another hobo who I would not have noticed. And I'm using hobo now instead of panhandling gentleman. Because this person stank big time and creepily was like on their knees when they found a location with enough room to be on their knees in the middle of the crowded train near me so I could smell it. But luckily, they got off when their time was done.
Interesting. All right.
So that's already 4 panhandling people, 4 begging people, and a fruit snack. And then, of course, yes, as it was foretold, at 59th and Legs, it was showtime.
Showtime.
I've never been on a train with that much annoying activity.
That
a
is-
single train ride.
Not one of them was the best possible outcome, which is mariachi band.
No, there was 0. If there was a mariachi band, I would have had a complete set, and it would have been like it would have been like jackpot.
At that
Money,
point,
everyone on the train would have been like, "Woo, money!"
like at that point, Gothamist would want to interview everyone on that train.
Yeah, I know. All the windows in the train would open, and like coins would start pouring in.
Yeah.
Like you won, complete set.
Now, to be fair, like don't think that Scott and I, you know, living in New York, you have to like for real harden your heart to the cruel realities of an evil world because there's no way to live your life otherwise. But at the same time, you should probably vote for Democrats so maybe we can address the root cause of this situation. Just saying. So in the news, actually, so we were thinking about doing a show on overclocking. And Scott asked the question because he was like, oh, that's a better show than your idea.
We probably did it before, though.
Yeah, so I look, and sure enough, we're on such a goddamn schedule. This happens more often than you'd think, but basically, whenever we have an idea that feels like, oh yeah, I wonder if we ever did a show on that, that's a good idea. Usually we've done it either exactly 1 year ago, exactly
1 year ago is Tech News Roundup, which,
Yep.
by the way, should be coming up in like a month.
Oh, thank Jesus. Thanks, Satan. I can finally do the easiest possible Monday show.
So, like, 2 or 3 Monday shows from now, it'll be Tech News Roundup.
I don't think you understand how all I do is pull up.
Wait, my memory could be wrong. My memory is telling me March, but it could be May.
I feel like it's between like late March
It
to
starts
early.
with M. Go check it.
Yep, stupid Smarch weather. But Scott was like overclocking, and I searched, and sure enough, we did talk about overclocking almost exactly 10 years ago.
Nothing new to say.
Monday, January 19th, so 10 years ago and like a couple weeks. Tonight on Geek Nights, we explain why overclocking is no longer practical,
That's still true.
though it once was.
That's also true.
Yep, like back in the day of the K7, overclocking a 600 megahertz computer to an 800 megahertz computer, that was a big goddamn deal. That was a lot of performance.
It sure was.
But overclocking a 4.8 gigahertz computer to a 5.0 gigahertz computer doesn't do shit.
Nope.
Oh, and in the news, they are trying to take away Obama's BlackBerry and an interview with an adware developer. And our things of the day, we're reforming the FCC and something that's called Freaky World War I photo, which doesn't go anywhere. So there's no way to know what that picture was.
Maybe you should try Internet Archive.
I will try to find out what the freaky.
If you really want things on the internet to not randomly disappear and to instead be stored in the Internet Archive, please go to archive.org where you can make a monthly donation to the Internet Archive.
I will link to that. So instead, we're doing a show on cheating because I feel like what we said in 2009
It's
about
all Rim. I got nothing.
Wait, so actually, I can update. Here's the update to the 2009 show, even though I have no idea what we said. I'm just guessing. The update is overclocking's kind of automatic now. If you just make your computer colder, your chips will be faster if you have good chips. And doing anything more than that is great for a hobbyist, but has zero practical application whatsoever. And I say zero, including the idea that you might mine bitcoins. So anyway, what do we got in the news? Because there's a big news.
Yeah, so check this out. I want to explain this in case people don't understand what happened in this news, right? So Apple, you might see news as like Apple pulled Facebook certificates and then pulled Google certificates and then gave them back, right? So here's what happened, right? If you want to make apps for an iPhone, right, you can't just install them on iOS unless you do a whole bunch of crazy hacking bad stuff because the hardware and operating system are designed in such a way that will only run software that has been digitally signed, and it must be digitally signed with the root iOS certificate, which is a private key that Apple owns, and you could never guess. And if you could, that would be the end of iOS security.
Now, there's a lot of reasons why they do this. I don't think we want to debate the like philosophical and moral and practical like reasons why people do this kind of thing.
They tried to do this on PCs, and people were like, no, y'all won't be able to run any of my existing software or open source software that will never be signed. I bought this computer. I should be able to run whatever code I want on it. But in making the brand new iPhone out of nothing, they were able to enforce that from the start. On OS X, you'll see a lot of warnings that's like, you're about to run software that hasn't been signed. It's basically a way for them to be like, make sure that this device will only run software that some authority has checked out that software to make sure it's cool, which, you know, we've talked about that in the past.
Yep.
But regardless, the system is in place in iOS. You can't, by default or without great effort, perhaps illegal, definitely hacking, unofficial efforts, run software that has not been approved by Apple on an iOS device, right? So if you want to get your stuff in the App Store, right, you have to make an Apple developer account. You get some keys, then they like sign your key with their key, and then you can use those keys that you got, that have been signed by Apple. So it's like you make a key. It's sort of like the way you do SSL on your website, right?
Yep.
You make a secure private public key pair. Then Apple approves your key with their key, and now iOS will run software that you sign with your key. But you can only, with that software that you sign with your own key, run it like, for development purposes, right? Like, I'm making this software. I need to be able to edit code, run it on my iPhone right now.
Yep, do some QA.
I can't, like, every time I change a line of code, send it to Apple.
Yeah.
Or, I need to test my software. I got a bunch of testers coming in, like 20 people at my company. They're all going to test the software. I got to distribute copies to everyone with TestFlight, which is the official. It wasn't an Apple thing originally, but Apple bought it and made it official because it was the best. way to distribute your software to testers. Sometimes people, will like I was using some Netrunner tournament software, and I would get faster updates, like beta updates, because the person with their key gave me an in on their test flight, so I was getting the software that they were signing, right? But to actually get in the App Store, you got to sign it, then send it to the App Store, where Apple will approve it even again somehow.
I think we could actually even do a show on like code signing
instead of a show on cheating.
Not right now. I don't know about right now, but
okay.
I don't have enough to say yet. I got to think about it.
Right. Regardless, right? You can't run software on iOS unless Apple's private key that you can never guess has in some directly or indirectly been used to sign that software, right? So even big companies like Facebook and Google are getting their keys to make their iOS apps. Apple is like approving and signing keys so that Facebook and Google can make and develop and run iOS apps. What happened is that there's like an agreement you make with Apple, right? Like there's a terms of service developer agreement for your developer account that you pay money for.
I won't use this to make malware that bricks phones. I won't give this. I won't sign shit for other people.
Key. It's like yeah, I agree that I'm not going to like sign 1,000 copies of software and sell it in some other shop and avoid the App Store. Right? I'm not going to use this to make shady ass software that does certain things. To make software that sort of does, that I wouldn't get away with in the App Store, right?
And that thing probably has a line that says, we reserve the right to revoke your certificate at any time for any reason, yada, yada.
So what Facebook was doing, at least, was they had a program where they paid you money, cash money, and then you would use test flight or equivalent to run software that did not get approved into the App Store, but was signed with Facebook's developer key.
Yep. Now this software is bad fucking news. There's other news about that.
Spies on everything you do. It was like they were telling you it was like a VPN, but really just spying on everything your phone did. Yep. Literally all your traffic.
There's a whole
so basically
thing
they
there.
were like it was basically, hey, pay us. We'll pay you money to give us even more of your data, like literally all of it from your phone. And you'll have to run this software that Apple won't approve, but we can get it to run on your iPhone by using these keys. And then as soon as Apple found out about this, they're like, hey, you're violating your agreement. We will just revoke your keys. So now, once they revoke the key, what happens is basically all iOS devices, because they get the new updates, to what's, to the key database or whatever, which keys are approved and not approved.
Yep.
Right? Now reject those keys. And no iOS devices will run those softwares. It will still run the official Facebook app from the App Store, because that key wasn't revoked, right? It was the developer key. So basically, everyone at Facebook who was, say, having to work on iOS software couldn't work. Any apps that Facebook made that were like for internal Facebook use only for iOS, all of those immediately stopped working on all
that
iOS
is
devices.
The part that was the bigger impact, let's say, to Facebook.
So Google was also caught doing some shady biz and got similarly temporarily revoked. So for example, Google had like internal only iOS apps for like doing Google stuff, like, that only Google employees
Well, here's an example. I work for a big company. Maybe we need an internal app on iPhone so anyone who has an iPhone can, reserve conference rooms.
Yep.
Or, look up where someone's desk is.
So
that's not an app you're going to put in a regular old app store.
They would use these keys to make apps that don't go in the App Store, but are for their employees or for development. And basically, all iOS things at Google and Facebook just refused. You couldn't open those apps anymore, or they got deleted, or whatever.
Props to Apple for sticking to their guns and using the revocation appropriately.
Well, the cynic would say props to Apple for wielding your technological power and the unbeatable power of encryption over your competitors.
But also props because the two cases they did it for seem pretty justified.
Oh, yeah.
Here's an app that spies on kids. Okay.
We pay money to kids to spy on them. Apple's like, no. We will not allow you to do that.
Yep. So I believe I haven't read all the follow-up news.
I think the main takeaway really is also, behold the power of real encryption.
Yep.
Right?
You can't just crack it.
Google and Facebook were just at the mercy because of a single file. And if that single file got out into the world, anyone who had that file could do anything to any iOS device like basically make it run any software they wanted,
Yep.
Apple would have to use that power to make every iOS device that wasn't already compromised reject all existing software.
Yep, and start signing
And
new
then
ones.
re-sign every app in the whole App Store with their new key. Just a number. It's just a number. If someone figured out that number, the havoc that would be wreaked.
And this is the exact same technology.
But without that number, you are powerless before the person who has that number. They are God of iOS.
This is the same technology that if you go to your bank's website, the web browser knows it's your bank.
Yep, because that bank knows the number and no one else does.
Yep. So in some other news,
2 numbers maybe.
Yeah.
2 prime numbers.
related to
Big ones.
related to big numbers. So Bitcoin's a scam. Just got to make sure. Like,
all coins are scams.
yeah, Bitcoin's a scam in my
Except
personal
for
opinion.
real coins.
Yeah,
Like the ones I sort when I get home.
you and your fiat currency. So there's a story
It's
here.
the only kind of coin I can spend in exchange for a breakfast
So-
sandwich. That is the only coin that matters.
I take this story with
coin
a
of the
grain of
land.
salt because
the king's tender.
I'm not implying anything. I'm not saying that I have knowledge about this situation. I'm not attempting to defame anyone
I don't
in any
know any of
particular
these
way
people.
or libel anyone.
I don't know any details beyond the headline.
But there's a story here where my gut feeling says there are one of 2 things that happened. Thing 1 is person legit died and company was stupid and now they're fucked.
Also relating to keys
Yeah.
of encryption.
Or option 2, person may or may not have died, but story is designed to hide
You think there is a faked death?
either a fake death or a real death that was used as an excuse.
If that is a fake death, this person is now changed from moron, possibly evil moron, to genius hero.
But in either one of those scenarios, in case 2, the reason for it would be, and again, I am not libeling or defaming anyone, this is pure speculation, to hide the fact that they lost $137 million worth of Bitcoins.
Yep.
It might be some other coin, I don't know or care, but basically there's a legit crypto exchange in Canada that said it lost $137 million of its customers' assets when its founder died, and its founder was the only human being who knew, it was only in his brain, it wasn't written down anywhere, the password to decrypt the offline wallet that stored most of the money.
Yeah. So
And because Bitcoins and coins like them are basically encryption, and I'm waving my hands because I don't want to go through the whole what is blockchain again, it's basically a bunch of magic numbers where you need another magic number to find out what those numbers are. And because no human being knows the magic number 1, all those Bitcoins are just gone.
if you could guess that magic number, why would you? You could just guess the key to all iOS devices, which would be even more valuable than the $100 million that are in that Bitcoin
Yep.
wallet.
So basically, supposedly, the exchange kept a bunch of, like, a reasonable amount of money in a hot wallet, like a wallet that had the transactions in it to do like customers are buying, selling their stupid coins. But they stored most of the money they owned, which makes sense. Like, this is how you would do it in an offline, like, secure encrypted backup. So they only go in there if they got to, like, bring more coins into the hot wallet because they're selling more than they're buying, like that kind of thing. That makes sense. But supposedly, the encryption for that was just known by one person who just died suddenly and mysteriously, I think in India. And also, they got his laptop, and apparently his laptop is also encrypted. No one knows the password to that. Data encryption people were like, yep, it's encrypted. You fucked.
Yep.
Someone's got to figure out the password. So once again, legit encryption is not beatable by most reasonable means.
Nope.
This is why backdoors into encryption are such a bad idea. So the story here is either company had a terrible disaster recovery plan,
None.
and a terrible business continuity plan,
None.
or company straight up scammed, possibly via murder, or possibly via taking advantage of someone's untimely death,
Possibly
or possibly
fake
via
death.
faking someone's death.
Hopefully the third one.
Every
the third one's
option
really the best.
outside of the death, because death is tragic, but outside of that, all the other aspects of this are pretty funny because these
That's what I'm saying. Hopefully the third one, because that means no one died.
Yeah.
It just means a bunch of Bitcoin morons got scammed. That's the greatest.
because
It's all positives on the fake death story.
I feel like every time the stupid crypto coins come up, the story is the same, and the story
I
is
bet
always
if you decrypt that laptop, it says, haha, I got your coins, bitches.
Yep. But it's like everyone involved in cryptocurrencies is just like
I guess no.
step
you know
by
what?
step learning why financial
Okay.
regulations exist.
I just made myself sad. The person probably is dead because if they ran away with the coins,
People would be after them.
because it's Bitcoin or because it's a blockchain.
Yep.
People would see those coins being sold.
True.
People would know they know which coins they are. So if someone ran away with them in a fake death, they would have to sell them, and they would see on the exchange those coins being sold.
Unless they
If you see the coins being sold, that means fake death.
Unless the death, fake or not, was facilitated by a third party to cover up massive fraud and other theft. Like maybe the exchange didn't actually have that.
You would still have to see those coins being sold.
Unless there aren't any coins.
But you could see on the existing chain those coins going into that wallet.
Possibly. I don't know how they set it up because they have a hot wallet and a gold wallet. We have no idea how they did their stupid transactions. And I didn't even read this article to see what coin it is because I don't care.
I don't care either.
The moral is don't use these cryptocurrencies.
Don't mess around with bullshit.
So I guess in one other news, making fun of cryptocurrencies even further, there's an article here pointing out that as of now, the average cost of mining one Bitcoin is like $4,000. The value of one Bitcoin is less than $4,000. So it is not possible to mine Bitcoins for money anymore.
What if you had you decrease the cost somehow by stealing GPUs from people?
That's it. Unless you're crooked.
Or using solar panels.
Unless you're crooked. There are only two legitimate, and I'm making finger quotes, ways to mine Bitcoins based on this information. My method number one is you honestly believe, and my soul is laughing at this, that the Bitcoins you mine now will be worth more money later.
So you're a rube making someone else money.
Yep. Or you are stealing that electricity somehow. Either via corruption or whatever.
Oh, steal it from your neighbor.
Yep. Maybe get a shady deal with a Chinese manufacturing company.
That was like, hey, my Con Edison bill is like $400 a month, and someone told me that's not normal, and I'm like, hell no, that's not normal. And someone was like, yeah, I had that problem. It was because there was an illegal studio apartment underneath my apartment, and I was getting put on their bill.
No.
So that's the kind of shit that happened in New York.
When I moved out of an apartment a long, long time ago, the place I moved out of, I shut down the Con Edison, but they did some shenanigans and got it turned back on, and I kept getting billed for the electricity that apartment used for 3 months.
I wonder if there's a way I can go into the building, the wall, and trick the meters in the building to give half my kilowatt hours to my neighbor.
There is a long and storied history of people messing with those meters with varying levels of success. I know more about that than you'd think because there was a friend of a friend whose dad I knew in high school who fucking did that for a living. He would come and he would literally in the suburbs, go to your house and you pay him some cash and he'd fuck around with your meter and your electric bill would go way down and it was super goddamn illegal.
Of course it's super illegal. It's the most illegal.
The same dude also sold satellite decrypters.
It's the most illegal.
Yep. This dude basically...
The same dude also had a boss named Tony.
No, that was a different dude. This guy was not mob connected. This guy was just low-key local shady. Local shady handyman who will run the extension cord to the neighbor's house effectively. He would also do unlicensed electrical work.
Okay.
Like you could pay him to fix your light switch.
What are you going to do when you sell the house? You're like, psst, electricity costs half in this house.
Yeah. Maybe. Wink and a nod. Wink's as good of a nod to a blind bat, eh?
Meanwhile, you're selling the house to someone from the power company.
So this article basically goes on to say that the only people who can really mine Bitcoin profitably right now are Chinese miners who are getting subsidized and or corruptly cheap electricity via corruption.
Well, someone's paying for that still, even if the power plant is paying for it.
You know who's paying for it? Earth and the Chinese people.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone's paying for it via corruption.
But Chinese Bitcoin miners are also Chinese people.
Yeah, other Chinese people. One person is... a large number of Chinese people are being defrauded, so a smaller number of Chinese people can mine Bitcoins and sell them to rubes in the United States, is my guess. This article has more about it, but the coins are dumb. Stay away from these coins. Because it's time for Things of the Day. What do you got?
So, fonts for computers. They're just a bunch of pictures, right? I mean, we've all used a wingding. You know that the letter A could be a smiley face.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but
yeah, you get the idea. A font could be anything. It doesn't have to actually look. The letter A doesn't got to look like the letter A. You can make it look like whatever the hell you want.
yeah.
So, and more, in recent years, we've made it possible to actually like get fonts in web browsers that aren't just Arial and Courier.
Yep.
So someone made this pretty cool website. They made a font, and in this font, every letter of the alphabet is a picture of a tree, but not just a picture of a tree, a picture of a New York tree.
They're really good pictures.
Yeah, because, different parts of the world, you got different species of trees, birds, plants, right? So there are trees that live in New York. I assume these are maybe like the 26 most common New York trees. So they made a little picture of each New York tree and also a big version for capital letters. And they assigned them to the 26 letters of the alphabet. And you type in this box, and you can see a whole bunch of New York trees.
It's pretty good font.
It's pretty cool, like artsy thing that you could put in a museum, I think, as a little exhibit maybe.
I like it.
I like it.
So last night, while we were watching literally the most boring Super Bowl I've ever seen in my life.
It was the worst Super Bowl ratings in 10 years.
I think there were exactly 3 plays that occurred.
Really, maybe among the worst halftime shows.
I think it was the lowest scoring Super Bowl in history.
I don't know. I think it was these. No, there were definitely lower ones, like Super Bowl 7, maybe. I think maybe lower.
It was the lowest scoring first half of a Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe, probably.
It was boring. But toward the end of it, I mentioned casually to the room that magenta doesn't exist. And, of course, that started a giant shitstorm because no one believed me. So here's a video.
Barry's part 3.
So to head this off, this is a video that will explain to you a very fascinating phenomenon where there are colors. And when you think of a color, what is a color? A color is a particular frequency of light, right?
Yep.
So that is every color in the rainbow has a particular frequency that'll make that color appear. And what a human would see isn't that frequency so much as the fact that we have 3 types of structures in our eye that will respond.
Cones, and the other ones.
Well, no, 3 kinds of cones plus rods.
Okay.
And these 3 kinds of cones will detect different sets of frequencies, and our brain looks at the output of these 3 plus the output of the cones or the rods for brightness and figures out what color we should think we see.
Right. They're sensitive to frequencies of photons, so they get stimulated, and then the stimulation goes through nerves, and then your brain decides, well, that stimulation equals this.
Yep. Now, there are a number of colors that are called extraspectral colors. The video doesn't get into that much depth about this, but like look at Wikipedia. There's deep explanations. These are colors where there is literally no frequency of photon that will make that color appear under any circumstances. It does not appear in the rainbow. There is no way to make that color come out of a prism. In any way.
No single
like
frequency.
Magenta. There's no goddamn such thing as magenta.
Right. What's the frequency of magenta? It's not. It's not a frequency. But what it is, actually, is just like red and blue sort of mixed together. So some photons are at this frequency and some photons are at the other frequency, and they're all packed close to each other, and they hit your cones at the same time. And so your brain is receiving like red, blue, 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 and then your brain is just like, fuck it, magenta.
So basically, what's crazy is for spectral colors, our brain actually figures out the right color to show. Because if you mix 2 actual colors, like you'll get a third color. Color theory stuff. I hope you learned this in like middle school. But our brain is really good at filling in and figuring this out. Like our brain's model works really well.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, is white even a frequency?
No, white is an extraspectral color.
Right, white is just all fucking crazy kinds of photons at all different wavelengths all at the same time. The whole rainbow jammed together. So a whole rainbow of photons hits your eye really fast all together, and your brain just like, oh my god, there's way too many different frequencies. Fuck it, white.
So basically, like, the moral of this video is, and it explains it in enough like detail at a sufficient level that pretty much anyone can understand it, magenta literally only exists in the human brain.
Yep.
Through multiple layers of abstraction, and it is shocking how consistent our brain is at figuring out the world.
I also just want to point out the thing I always point out, which is well known, obvious, and pointless, but I could look at some red and point at it and say, that's red. You look at it and say, that's red, but we could be seeing completely different things.
Oh, Scott, I feel like it's high school, and we're all laying
We
on
could
our
be.
backs in the bleachers at night on the football field outside
Yep.
of the school.
Yep.
One kid is smoking a joint, no one else is because that's the dumb kid.
That's right.
And we're all sitting there and we're having that exact conversation.
That's right. And then you know what? Animals, they see like, we see some ultraviolet. We can't even see that shit. Some animal looks at ultraviolet. They see something. We know that they can see ultraviolet because of science, and we did experiments. But what do they see actually look like? What the fuck we know?
So
We just know that their eye responds to it.
the other thing is, if you watch this video, you should be able to figure out on your own how those magic glasses that let colorblind people see color work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can figure that out from the information you'll get from this, coupled with a rudimentary understanding of colorblindness.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a really well done video. Like, they explain this in 5 minutes.
Yep.
And it's a moderately complex topic.
Mm-hmm.
And they lay all the foundations. It's a really good video. Like, I've subscribed to this channel.
Why don't we just get like 7 cones up in? That way we don't have to do
There's some people who can they have a 4th type of cone.
Whoa.
They can see more colors than us.
I didn't know it was because they had a 4th type of cone, though.
It's
I thought
they-
it was
some
just
of
'cause
their
they had
cones-
better cones.
Some of their cones respond different. I forget the detail. I don't actually know a lot about that. I
Should get a
probably
safety cone
misstated it. But theoretically, we could replace our optic nerve with something that's way more sensitive or way more complicated.
Yeah.
It's just our brain figuring stuff out based on frequencies it detects and photons that bounced off of shit.
Mm.
So, in the meta moment, the book club book, we've been too busy to read
Oh,
anything.
No. Oh no.
Read a book, says Rim and Scott, who haven't read a book in a while.
Oh no.
What have I been reading? I've been reading nonfiction and like manga.
Yeah,
So,
oh no, I've been reading manga and websites.
so we're gonna read 2001: A Space
I'm
Odyssey.
going to make an actual reminder right now because we have fucked up big time. There is no running from that fact.
Yep.
I'm going to add a reminder. I'm doing it as I'm speaking right now.
But what I will say is
Read-
that
read the fucking book.
if you want to be an intelligent, erudite person who knows things about things, you should read books. And while we have not yet done this particular Geek Nights book club because
I added it to my Remember the Milk thing, so now I'm actually
because
gonna read.
reasons, the Geek Nights book club has been going for a long time, since
And meanwhile,
2007.
despite that long time, the number of books in the book club are depressingly low.
There are 5 pages of the archives. So
That's pretty good. Actually.
I'm going to link to it. I think the way you should handle the book club until we start reading again is go to the archive of episodes we already did for a book, read the book, and then listen to that episode.
If history is any indication, as soon as we finish reading 2001, Rim will immediately read 2010.
Yeah, yep.
And
'Cause
I will not.
Because what happened? We
I will
read.
be satisfied with my watching of 2010.
So let's see. We did the Shattered Earth trilogy. We both read the first book.
Yep. I
We-
read a little bit of the second one.
We met the hottest fictional character ever written.
Yep.
And then I immediately read the next 2 books because it's Evangelion, and oh my god, it's crazy good. We decided to read The Wheel of Time because we had to know what's the
I
deal.
decided to read The Wheel of Time, and Rim went,
I did go, and we read the first book, and you made it a little further.
I read a handful more.
You got up to like the beginning of the 4th book, I want to say.
Something like that.
I just kept soldiering on. I finished the whole goddamn thing, and I know the deal.
You went around the whole wheel.
I did. I know the full deal. I know
You
what
got burned.
I know what's on the other side of the Wheel of Time. It's you know what it is? A bunch of stuff happens, and then eventually it just stops happening because
a badass tower with snake bone people in it that you never find out about.
Yep, I know a lot of details about the Bone Tower snake people.
The only thing I cared about.
There's 2 kinds of those snake people.
I know.
Yeah.
That's the part I read.
I know the whole deal. I know about the cannons. I know everything you can possibly know about the fucking Wheel of Time. Scott will never know.
Nope. I will not be regretting that on my grave. Should have read Wheel of Time.
I feel like should have read the Wheel of Time is really low on the list of life regrets.
That will not come to my mind.
However, I will say one
Unless
thing.
Rim is so clever and somehow manages to live longer than me, and he said, and I'm in the hospital. And
If my dad,
and Rim's like, should have read Wheel of Time. You wouldn't be dying right now. I'm outliving you because I read Wheel of Time.
it gave me a gnosis.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about all that though is that I'm continuing in my policy of never getting past the first book of any long-running series where it is unless it is done or the author is dead. One of those 2 has to be true. And that I think will serve me well. So I'm not when another King Killer book comes out, if it ever comes out, not that I even really want to read it that much, but I might just to find
I bought
out.
the second one and then disposed of it
I would only
without reading it.
I would only read the next one that comes out if he is dead after it is written. I hope not. He's a pretty cool guy. Or he says that's the last one. He is a pretty cool guy. I've seen him do a bunch of talks at PAX Dev.
Yeah.
He is really funny in person.
Yeah.
Also, it sounds like his daughter's really cute. Like he has good stories about trying to write. But anyway, those videos are probably on YouTube because those weren't like secret PAX Dev talks. They were just fun PAX Dev talks. Go look for Patrick Rothfuck's like PAX talks. You might find something on YouTube. Anyway, so I was thinking about this because I read this article a little while ago about how rich kids are cheating in school with Apple Watches.
Major League Baseball people are cheating with Apple Watches till they got caught, and now they can't have Apple Watches in the dugout anymore.
But what's interesting is that poor kids, it's not just that they're, like, poor kids, probably, like, everyone would, a lot of people, a cross-section of society would cheat if they could. It's not just that rich kids can afford iWatches and poor kids can't. It's that the kinds of rules that schools enforce tend to be highly weighted towards socioeconomic status, so they won't make the kids in a rich school take off their iWatches.
Yeah,
so
the rich school doesn't have a no Apple Watch rule.
So the poor kids in the rich school don't have the iWatch, and they just get worse grades on average because the same percentage of them want to cheat, but only the rich kids have the opportunity to cheat.
Yep.
And simultaneously, the poor schools will often enforce rules like, can't have a goddamn cell phone in school. Sorry, kids. No laptops.
And the New York schools, they have a thing where, like, I've seen these things. It's like a little van. It's actually a private company that runs this, and it'll sit outside the public school, and kids on their way into school will go over to this van that is a privately owned business, give them money and their phone. That van will hold on to and it's like a coat check for phones.
Yep.
And then when the kid comes out of school, they bring their ticket and get their phone back because they're not allowed to have the phone in school.
Now, that's bullshit.
I don't know if the rule has changed, but they were definitely a thing that existed if it doesn't still exist.
Those rules tend to own, like, where those rules exist or are enforced is highly dependent upon socioeconomic status of the area and the students.
Yep.
And to make it even worse, access to technology is often an issue for kids with disabilities, where some kids need some technology, but only rich kids can get the doctor's note that says why they need the technology. So poor kids who need the same technology, even if they have the technology, can't actually get everything together so the school will let them use the technology.
Yep.
So this is like this space, people don't talk about it a lot. There's a lot going on in the, like, how kids use technology in school space.
See our panel about balancing games, only balancing school.
Yep.
Just replace game with school. Nothing changes.
So, did you ever cheat with technology when you were in school in the era of TI calculators?
The only cheating I did is because I was angry that they were like, you may not have programs on your calculator.
So what's funny?
You can use they were like, you can use. First of all, I was mad when they said no calculator at all. That was bullshit.
So only the normal kid classes had that rule. The so-called accelerated classes, you gotta have a calculator. You can't be in the class.
Well, no, I was like in a class where the calculator was required, but for certain parts of the curriculum, it was like, all right, these tests, no calculator. And it was bullshit. Anyway, I was like, that's bullshit. In my whole life, I'm going to have a calculator and a computer.
Yep.
Why would I, But anyway, but when they did allow a calculator, the teacher would be like, hey, we're not going to allow you to have any programs on your calculator because...
Yeah. Well, programs usually meant someone had typed a bunch of stuff into a text editor.
Well, no, we had a whole... We had serial cables and all sorts of sophisticated stuff.
So we'd pass like that Pong game around.
TICalc.org was like my most visited website. I still have all my stuff in my drawer at home.
I didn't have the cable to get the stuff onto my calculator directly, so I had to copy it from other people.
That's what because the calculator came with the calculator to calculator cable.
Yep.
I had the serial, and also I now have a USB to calculator cable. But anyway, we would use these to get software from TICalc.org, some of it written in BASIC, some of it written in assembly, loaded onto the calculator. But me and my friend together, mostly my friend, but also completely not me, we wrote programs that would do things like factored polynomials that would allow you to pass a test on factoring polynomials really easily. Like if it was ax squared plus bx plus c.
Yep.
We had a program that we made where you just literally typed in A, B, and C and pressed enter.
So you know what's funny? I wrote one for calculus
and it would
classes.
break it out.
Because remember, this was before even like the TI-89, where like no kids had like fancier calculators that did more.
Most kids had TI-83 because that was required by school. We had TI-86.
So TI-86 came out later. So in our school, normal kids had to have the TI-83, and the school would buy it for you if you couldn't afford it.
Oh.
But if you were in the accelerated program, you had to get a TI-85.
Oh, see,
because the 86 was too new. Like, it wasn't out yet.
85 was out, but like basically the school just wanted everyone to have 83, right? But it's like smart kids didn't buy 83
because they knew better. The 85 was better in every possible way, and the 86 had way more memory than the 85.
I saw nerds with 85s, but then when I went to the store, I saw an 86, which is just an upgraded 85.
He's too more than X. He's better.
And then there was the 89 that came later.
So in high school, there was one kid. He was kind of rich and smarmy, and then I got a bunch of stories not worth telling on this show. Kid had a fucking TI-90.
Well, I saw a kid,
which was older than the 86.
Well, there was like the 92, right? Which is like a big one. The 90 was like the big one. It looked like it was almost like a tablet.
The 92 was
it was like an upgraded 90.
I forget the difference, but basically he had this thing and it would do some calculus and like
the 89 basically did the stuff the 90 did almost.
Yeah. But it would do like symbolic math, which the 85 and 86 could not do by themselves.
There's basically a huge scam going on because those things still cost a fortune, which is ridiculous.
But you can get an app on a phone that does it for free.
Yeah, it's like, why?
But
there's no reason for those Z80 processors to cost that much money. They should be like $5.
So what's funny is I did the same thing. I wrote some programs based on the types of problems people would commonly get in like trig and calc classes that would do like symbolic math as long as the problem with it was in certain parameters. It would do the math and it would even show the work. So it would print out like, here's the work to show, here is the answer. And I got a talking to by the school, but they couldn't actually punish me because it wasn't against the rules to write the program. It was only against the rules for some other kid to use the program. And of course, my name was all over the fucking program because I was
you could just type
Rim made this. Fuck y'all.
Right at the start of the test, even if you had a blank calculator, you could start typing in the program.
Yep.
Right, if you memorized it. But anyway, so what we did is we had the program rewrote. They wanted us to like erase our calculators before the test.
My school did that to get around the fact that I had distributed this program so widely.
So there was another program we got from the internet that would basically display on your calculator screen the message that said this calculator had just been reset. All you had to do was light up those pixels. The same pixels that would be lit up if you legit reset your calculator. You'd show that to the teacher. They'd say, okay, I believe you. You reset your calculator.
So the one we downloaded that we all shared was a little bit better than that. You basically would hit a button when you wanted it to activate, and it would go through motions like it was erasing and even show a progress bar. Because there was that little like single pixel.
Ours did the same thing the calculator did when you legit reset it, not some fake.
Oh no! So
thing.
when you did the reset, there was this 1 pixel progress bar for like a second or two, and then it would be like erased. It even emulated that. That was the important part. So I would literally.
But anyway, the teacher believed you reset the calculator, you'd make that go away, and then your calculator was not reset, and you would have your programs.
Yep.
And then you'd take the test, finish it really fast, and then play Tetris.
So I even went one step further because I wrote another program that I used myself that would show like physics equations in detail and all this stuff. But I put copy protection in it. So if anyone else messed with the code, like removed my name from it or anything, it looked like it still worked, but it gave slightly wrong answers. And some kids got busted around that. But I used the hell out of these programs, and I totally got away with it. And actually, my school ended up giving up on enforcing. And they, like, basically because of the programs I wrote, the school sort of changed its policy to you can use whatever programs are on the calculator, and the tests should just reflect a mastery of skills as opposed to just like knowing equations or like they basically worked around my program.
So what are the kids doing these days with their Apple Watches?
So as best I can tell, kids just like look things up on Wikipedia. Like here's the thing, in the old days.
It's hard to do on an Apple Watch.
In the old days, we could only use programs like this to quote unquote cheat in math class, maybe physics class, maybe certain science classes. Because I remember I was sitting in French class in 10th grade, and this one kid, Sean, busted out his TI-85 and started like typing something. And the teacher's like, "What math are you doing in the French test? Bring your calculator up here right now." And he legit like typed a French dictionary into a program.
The whole thing.
Yeah, he just like typed a bunch of shit in
I
there.
would just
to
type
cheat.
the words that we learned in that section of the.
Well, no, he typed like the parts that were relevant. Like he didn't really understand the calculator, so he wrote a program. But the program was not a program you could run. He just typed a bunch of shit that he needed to remember so we could take
and then
the
he
test.
opened up the program editor, basically using it as a text editor.
Yep.
Yeah.
he got busted instantly. So like I couldn't use the calculator unless I had a plausible reason to use the calculator.
Yeah, and
But
it's not like I had a phone with a
Yup.
computer in it in 1990, whatever.
I mean, in 1997, I had a cell phone that I brought to high school with me, and
You could not install software on it. It could make phone calls.
it did not have a screen of any
The
kind.
Motorola StarTAC I had could display web pages in sort of a worse than Link's web browser at great expense to the phone plan. That phone I did not have till 2001.
Yep. So, it's interesting because kids can't really cheat with their phones because it's really obvious if a kid pulls out a phone. Like, that's an easy rule that a non-technologically savvy person can apply to a classroom of you can't pull your phone out of your pocket during the test.
Yep.
A savvy kid could make something with vibration nonsense like chess masters. No one's doing that in high school. If you are, I feel like you
They
deserve it.
deserve it.
Yeah, like you won. Good job. You have a skill that you can apply to real life.
Mhm.
But the iWatch, I think, presents a specific problem. I don't think a lot of teachers understand the capabilities of smartwatches. And it's really easy to kind of slyly look at a watch.
If you got a multiple choice test, you can easily use Apple Watch to just text with a friend. The minimum cheating I would do is like, we're not even going to cheat. I'll do all the even questions. We're going to do all the odd ones. It's
Yep.
multiple choice. I message you 1A. You message me 2B. I message you 3C.
Yep.
We get the test done in half the time, and I trust Rim to do his half, and because he has to trust me to do my half.
Yep.
He's better do a good job.
Or you get someone who took the test earlier in the day and they start texting you answers from their test that they already took.
Mm-hmm.
It's real easy to get away with. And I feel like because it's a watch, a lot of teachers they don't understand enough to be like, all right, everyone has to take their watches off during the test.
Yep.
And coupled with everything else we talked about, it seems like this is pretty rampant cheating now. And I guess what I find philosophically different about this is that with older, shittier technology, the act of trying to cheat taught you as much as the cheating. Like, it taught you as much as the class.
Yeah, I had to write a program.
Yeah, to make
cheat.
my program that did some, like, simple symbolic
Or I
math.
had to at least download and install a program onto it, which is like, oh, anyone can do that, onto a TI calculator.
Yeah, with what looks like a headphone cable. But I had to learn symbolic math enough to write a program in basically QBasic that could do it on my calculator, type it all in by hand.
Type it on a calculator,
Yup.
not on a computer.
And I had to figure out how to hide the fact that this program existed from my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned more doing that. But nowadays, with the watch situation, like, real easy to cheat, hard for teachers to deal with. And I worry that I don't know what schools should do about this situation.
I know exactly what schools should do about this situation.
All right.
You need to make tests such that the test itself is invulnerable to cheating.
Yes. The idea that I would argue that in the modern world, most tests in school, you should have a computer with access to the full internet during the test.
Yep.
And the test should be such that just reading if you go to Wikipedia, learn the thing to answer the question, that was the test. You were able to get a correct answer while using the internet. Like, that is a skill we need
not
to
just
teach.
that, but it's like just the kind of questions you got to ask. It
Yeah.
should be things where it's like, okay, yeah, good luck. You got the internet. You're still not. Let's see if you, even with the internet, can you do this?
Yep.
Can you? Huh? Can you? It's not just like what year. It's like, okay, I looked it up. I typed it in. I get correct. It's like, no. You can't ask a question like that.
Yep.
The question has to be like, all right, here's a complicated, right, word math problem, right? Okay, I got the whole internet. Do you even know what math you need to do?
Yep.
Can you even figure out what it's like? Okay, you have the God's calculator. Do you even know what to type into it?
And thus, we need to also, for the situations where it does make sense to deny technology, we need pretty universal, like standardized testing. You need pretty standard, like universally applicable ways to enforce that, regardless of socioeconomic status or access to said technology.
Or there'd be like a test where it's like, all right, we're asking you this question about the book. You got a whole copy of the book.
Yep.
And you're here. Here's the cliff notes, too. Let's see you answer this, quite complicated question about, the feelings of the characters in the book. You're going to read the whole book while you sit here? We got a time constraint. 10 minutes. Let's go.
So I remember one time, this was in 10th grade.
If you read the book, it would be easy. It would take 1 minute.
In 10th grade, I was an AP Western Civ, and a lot of people in the class, despite it being an AP class, were, I think the technical definition of this person is chucklefuck. Okay. So they were like... They were shitty at this class, and there was trouble. And the teacher was like, you know what? Everyone had trouble with the last test. The test tomorrow, guess what? Open book. I'll let you use the book. Not changing the test at all. Open book. Mm-hmm. And basically all the people who had been struggling struggled just as much. They had still all failed the same way, and he proved his point. And
there's also lots of other anti-cheating techniques that teachers have used for a long time, like in multiple choice. Give everyone the same multiple choice questions, but randomize the order.
Yep.
So when people are like looking at the other person's Scantron, they'll say like, ooh, 5C. It's like, but their 5 was your 10. You didn't know.
Yep.
Everyone was random.
I think... Like, it's pretty easy to prevent this kind of cheating. You just need teachers who care and reasonably uniform ideas of how to approach it. And it shouldn't involve such draconian things as dropping your technology off at the door when you come in.
Yep.
But we need some way
I mean,
to do
people
it.
that these days are taking a lot of tests, like, on their computer. Or there's, like, they're going to some website. They got to take the website. It's like they're doing a study from home, like, college course. And all the tests are on the computer. They got to do it at home. And it's like, as soon as they push start tests, like this timer happens. It's like, just hack that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't.
Ooh, some JavaScript.
Right?
The other side of this, and then I think we'll be out of time so we can wrap it up, is the cheating via, like, the heuristic detection of plagiarizing in tests.
Oh, plagiarizing is totally, like, the other kinds of cheating I'm much more cool with than, like, plagiarizing. Especially, that's like, plagiarism usually comes into play not on a test you take in a room, but when you have a project.
Yep, like make a program that does this or write an essay about this.
You can't cheat on that because you go home and work on it. It's like you have the full internet. You can talk to people. You can basically you can go on Stack Overflow and ask for help. It's like the whole resources of the world are available to you when it's a take-home project paper thing.
So I have an anecdote I just remembered.
The only problem is plagiarism, where you literally just you take someone else's and turn it in. And that is not cool.
When I was in elementary school, I remember this moment so clearly because another bullshit thing happened that day. This was in 3rd grade, where a kid used the word expel as like part of a little essay they wrote, and the teacher was like, there's no way you know that word, and failed him, and I was really mad because that kid was smart. But in the same day, we had all had to write an essay on Mahatma Gandhi. Everyone had to write an essay the whole week on Mahatma Gandhi, and then on Monday, everyone was going to read their essay out loud. So we just went down the rows, and the first kid read their essay. The second kid read their essay, and it was very similar. Like, very similar. The first couple of sentences were different. The last couple of sentences were different. But the middle sounded like exactly the same. Teacher didn't seem to notice anything. Like, teacher didn't just stone-faced it. The third person starts reading their essay, and it's pretty much the same essay, and they stumble over a word, and some other kid in the class provided the next word, looking at their own essay, and the teacher was like, everyone pass your essays forward. Most of you are probably failing. And then the next day, the class got a lesson in why not to just copy the encyclopedia article on Mahatma Gandhi. They had physically copied it by hand from the same encyclopedia because everyone had the same encyclopedia.
Except you.
Except a couple of people. No, I just actually wrote an essay.
Oh, okay.
I read that encyclopedia, and I wrote my own essay. That mostly said that, but I used different words.
I would have just watched Gandhi the movie and then written an essay. A lot easier that way. Good movie.
That was a good enough show. We out.